All right, it is time for the Wheel of Time Should You Read? And this was by far the most intimidating one that I've prepared. Not only because it's 15 books, and when you read 15 books of something, like, you have a lot of opinions, even spoiler-free, and you don't want to forget anything, but I'm going to forget some stuff. That's fine. But per usual, this is going to be, an honest take of how this experience was for me. So if you and I have similar or different reading tastes, you can, adjust your expectations for yourself. And also just me talking about what's generally in this so you can decide, is it worth my time? Especially because this is a 15-book series. And none of them are short. I think there's one that is less than 600 pages. Maybe. Like, they are very long books. I think it technically has more words in it than the 10 books in Malazan, which is impressive to me because those books are definitely longer. But there's less of them because there's only 10 books there. And like I said, this is 15. So we're going to start with just my experience, why I read this, even though it's going to be very obvious very early on in this video that this series was not for me. And that's okay. But why did I keep going? And then, we'll break it down into what is the Wheel of Time, tropes that you're going to find in here, and then plot writing, character work, and world building. And at the end, I will ask myself and maybe answer the elusive question of, was it worth it for me? It's the breakdown of this video. So, my experience, I picked this up in the fall of 2019. This is before I have a BookTube channel, but I have discovered BookTube. And we knew the Wheel of Time show was coming out. That's when I picked this series up. I had known about it for a long time before that. My stepdad had finished reading it when I was a kid. A lot of my friends, well, not a lot of my friends, but I knew people my age who were reading this series and who were trying to get me to read the series. But because of my stepdad and because I saw his frustration, and he told me he didn't think I would like it, I never had. So why 2019? Well, in 2019, I watched a Should You Read Wheel of Time video that convinced me that I should. And mistakes were probably made, but also I am the type of reader who does like to dabble in, formative works in the genre. I have done this with a lot of other authors that I don't discuss as much on the channel because it was pre me being on BookTube, but I don't know, it's a thing I like to do so I can have opinions, okay? I'm human, I like having opinions. And so I started in 2019, and I read the first 2 books then. And then come spring of 2020, I pick up the 3rd book with my friend Stephanie at Miss Richards Reads, and we have been buddy reading about 1 a season since then. So I did not marathon this series, but I never let larger than 2 to 3 months go by between each book. So that's how I approached this series, and it wasn't until the slog, the middle books, like books 8 through 11, that we started reading like 2 a month. Like 11 we read on its own, but I think we put New Spring in with a slog book. Like, I think it was Crossroads of Twilight and New Spring were read pretty close together. So we read those kind of close together because we figured we wanted to get through the lesser loved books quickly to get back to the books that people tended to be fans of. And that's how we got here. February of 2023 is when I'm filming this, and I finished the series. And it was a time, if I wasn't buddy reading this with a friend, and if I wasn't the type of completionist person who wanted my own opinions, and to see if my favorite author could finish this series in a way that made it impactful for me, I probably should have stopped at book 4. After reading book 4, I kind of knew that this series was never going to actually be the experience for me that it is for other people, which is unfortunate because the way other people talk about this series is so freaking cool. Like, when other people talk about it, I'm like, this sounds so awesome. This sounds like it's for me. And I think that's where I got tricked, is that all of the cool stuff people talk about is not actually really easy to glean from the pages without putting in a lot of work on your end. So a lot of this video is going to be me discussing what this is like as a casual reader, a casual fan, versus a mega fan, or someone who's like, this is my bread and butter, my favorite thing. Because I do think those subsets of people, like, we're not talking about haters or anything like that, but they're going to get very different experiences from this, because I think if you're someone who takes notes, who's in the forums, who rereads this over and over and over again, your experience is going to be very different from someone who's like, yeah, I just want to read through these 15 books one time and I don't have the mental capacity or energy to take notes. I just want to read a story and get what I can from the story. Like, I think those are just 2 different experiences. So I'm definitely probably tailoring this video more towards the casual reader, because if you're a mega fan, you don't need this video. You know you love it. You're gonna know right away if you love it. Like, maybe you're like in book 8 and you're like, is it still worth it to keep going? And I will say, if you are a mega fan, it probably is. Like, if it's just book 8 that's suddenly starting to get tiring for you, you're probably going to be fine. But if you've been having issues even when people say they love the books, like books 4 through 6, your experience is probably closer to mine, and this might be more informative for you. So, what is the Wheel of Time at its core? Because I don't actually know if a lot of people really talk about this. It's not that big a deal. It's pretty standard, but the 14 main books, not New Spring. New Spring is a prequel book, which is really good. It's my favorite. But the 14 main books, it takes place over 2 years, and we are following all of our characters prepare for this last battle and defeating the Dark One, who is a force that is always against the structured tapestry of the universe. So it is always trying to break the Wheel of Time. And that's our main purpose, this entire series. And it's 14 really long books, but the time period is 2 years. So in that time, you will meet characters, and by the end, they have gone through some pretty substantial arcs. So that's what you're in for. And I will also say, because I think this is important to note, you're not going to get complete arcs within books. There are complete arcs within the series. Like I would say book 1 through 3 is a really good arc. Book 4 through 7 is a really good arc. 8 through 11 is pretty good. And then 12 through 14. That's about where I think you have good, like, oh, we really tied up a lot of threads at this moment sort of points in the series. If you're someone who's like, but I just read an 800-page book and I have no payoff, that's frustrating. That's a feature. It's not a bug. That happens all the time in this series, and you just have to go with it. That's just what it does. The first 3 books, definitely, they follow more traditional adventure quest story arcs where, like, you can kind of understand why the climax is the climax and why it ends the way it does. But after that, sometimes the book just ends, and you're just like, huh, okay, that's a place to end it, I guess. But, you know, at least that was my experience many, many, many times. Tropes you're going to find in this book, or features or things like that, you got a chosen one. I won't tell you who the chosen one is, but I think it's fairly obvious who the chosen one is. Lots of quests and traveling this world. And you're going to travel in many different ways and to many different countries and nations and cultures. Lots of questing. Lots of we got to get the thing because it's important. And it is important. I'm not here to say it's not important, but it's not going to be important for like tens of thousands of pages, okay? Like you're going to go on a quest for a thing in book 2, and that is not going to pay off for a very, very, very long time, okay? You're not going to really get a school setting, but you do get learning magic. So if you like learning magic and stuff, it's not done to like my tastes, but it does exist. I'm not going to say it's not there. Let's see. We have a lot of miss/lack of communication, which is earned. It's just, if that's going to frustrate you, it's going to frustrate you. It doesn't go away. Like I said, it makes sense in terms of the culture and personalities in which we're given, but it doesn't make it less frustrating if it's going to frustrate you. And it's there. There's just so much. There's so much lack/miscommunication in this series. It's astounding. It's truly. And then another one is, again, I'm going to call it 2 different things, because I think it would be called this instantly in any other book, and that's insta-love, or just poorly portrayed character development with others. There are several moments where you're like, I didn't know that you guys liked each other, but okay, fine. And I think part of it is that one of them, it's actually important, and the other one, it's not. And then the other ones, it's like, fine, I kind of saw it, but character interactions are just not the focus. There is court intrigue, and there is a pretty good version of the reluctant hero. I don't love the character that represents the reluctant hero, but I would be lying if I didn't say that he really fits that trope incredibly well. So, we're first going to get into plot, because I've already kind of alluded to some of the plot things that, for some readers, especially the casual reader, are going to drive you crazy. If you are a mega fan, you will probably be patient, and this will actually probably be a pro for you. Because I think how a lot of people who really love this series talk about these elements is that there is such great payoff. Things are laid down in the first 2 books that are so important later on, and that's true. For me, it's like, oh, we did this thing in the first 3 books, and then we just didn't talk about them for 10 books, and now they're important again. And that's not actually very fulfilling storytelling to me. I think it expects too much of the reader to be that patient, especially for how long these books are, and how often it happens. If you do it like once, maybe twice, but it's a lot. It's truly quite a lot. And like a thing I have said a lot with my friends and maybe in other videos is the whole metaphor of this series is that we have a tapestry. We have a wheel of time. Everyone is threads in the wheel of time. We have certain portals that can like affect it more. We have Taviran and things. And I craft. I work with color work. I have made blankets. I have made sweaters. I've made many things where I have to change colors. I have to pick up and drop threads. If a story like this is a plot with many, many, many threads that you have to keep track of and interweave and bring out and into the story, fair, that's what storytelling can be, and you have this metaphor of this tapestry, when you work with color, if you do not pick up a thread for a long period of time, it literally loses tension, okay? Like, you have a string in the back that's going to get hooked onto things, and it messes up how your picture looks. Like, this is an actual thing if you work with color work, that they always say, even if the color needs to not come in, you need to casually bring it into the work, or else it's going to be too loose and you will lose the tension you need to make all the stitches look good. Like, that's how it works. And it's a perfect metaphor for what is being done wrong, in my opinion, a lot of times with plot threads in this series. And I do think there is an argument to be made, especially by a mega fan, that maybe sometimes they are being brought up, but in really subtle ways. Again, I'm speaking more for someone who's going to approach this as a casual fan who does love fantasy, but again, is just reading this for entertainment, isn't reading this to take notes and connect all the dots. And, they aren't going to get the joy of reading it as books come out now. Someone picking up this series now, all the books are out. There's not going to be discussions in the fan base about what do we think is going to happen in book 8. That's past. We have book 8, So it's a different experience for new people coming into Wheel of Time now. And I think there are more casual fans than mega fans. And I think that's annoying. And I think if you are finding that annoying, it's a feature, not a bug, I guess, but I don't think it's amazing plot development. A thing that I can take or leave that is neither here nor there is that the villains / dark friends are important to the plot, and I think for the most part, the important things are telegraphed loudly enough that you are like, oh, okay, that's why this thing has happened. And in general, some people can keep track of who is who because there's a lot of like quirky subversion in the background. It's not my favorite thing, but no, it's there. Like, if you do like puzzling stuff, you are more than welcome to. It is there for you. This book is layered with details, and if you are someone who loves that, loves picking things apart, this could be really fun. Not many series, I think, give you this type of opportunity. So in that way, this is a positive, right? If that is your type of thing you want to consume. But you also have to be careful, because as you're being curious and you want to Google things, you don't want to spoil yourself. There are actually pretty good resources in the Wheel of Time community. Like, there's a Wheel of Time compendium app, and you can basically be like, I am in book X, and it will only show you character information for names that have been revealed up to that point and the pages that those reveals have been on. So there are ways of doing this. So if you think it could be that thing for you, you have a lot of fun ahead of you. I just don't think that that's what the average casual fan of fantasy is reading a book series for. But it is here in spades and details. And I will get into the writing, which actually, I feel like a lot of people discuss writings in their negatives. This writing was fine. It's completely serviceable. Yes, is it a little over-detailed? Yes, is it a little repetitive? Sure. This is by far not the thing that bothered me. It's more what was written than how it was written that were my issues in the series, and we'll get into that a little bit with character work coming up. But in general, I thought it was very serviceable, like I said, verbose, and especially if the physical reading isn't working for you, the audiobooks are, again, also serviceable. Near the end, Kate Redding gets a little weird with her accents. Like, some people suddenly get British accents who haven't had them before, or lower or higher pitched voices. But for the most part, they are fairly consistent and are a good way of bringing these characters to life and helping you get through maybe some of the more detailed, heavy scenes if that's not your thing as a reader. So now into character work. This is, again, something where I want to say up front, I agree with all the mega fans that, for the most part, a lot of what these characters do makes sense within the context and world in which we are giving them. I will also say that doesn't make it less frustrating that they are the way they are. And I think there was a choice made, and I can now see it's a choice, because New Spring is a fantastic book in this series. New Spring is so fun. I would recommend reading it in publication order, but it doesn't really matter. You can read it as a prequel before you start, but I read it after book 10 because that's when it was published. And that shows an actual friendship that uses communication and has a goal and accomplishes a task. It's wonderful. And that is probably one of the only moments I felt like true friendship in the way that I like to see it portrayed. There are friendships in this series, but everything is laced with a lot of stubbornness and bitterness and bickering. And that's in like almost every interaction that happens in this book. Whether it's between people, like early on, there is this non-stop bickering between genders that happens all the time. And I understand thematically what he's doing with it, but again, it doesn't make it less frustrating that it's there all the time. It gets less aggressive near the end, or maybe I just started ignoring it near the end. But early on, it's just like, I get it. This is so obnoxious. Stop. Like, this is the type of thing where I don't mind being repetitive, but being repetitive about this was a lot. And then, like I said, even though we're exploring several cultures, everyone's always bickering. It's just different ways of watching people bicker, which I know is how society is. But I just felt like it was really frustrating to see because it never actually felt that unique. And people were always just doing the standard, my way's the best way. And you can't do it because you're just not as good as me. Like, it was just a whole bunch of alphas in the room. And we literally have two, like, I guess they don't know the timeline, but it's the end of the world. Like, this whole series is the end of the world. And people are just bickering over the dumbest stuff. And I'm just like, oh. And I think that's frustrating. Is that realistic? I guess maybe. Like, that's not... But is that fun? So if that's okay for you, if you want that hyper-realistic, people are obnoxious to each other all the time, maybe it'll be fine. For me, it's a fantasy. It can be fantastical in that way, right? Like, I don't know. I think for me, there was a lot in that execution that frustrated me more than let me appreciate what it was attempting to do thematically in its world building. But again, it's not that I'm here to say that it doesn't make sense or anything like that. But if you don't like those type of character interactions, that's all this series is. Like, if you watch the TV show, that's not how their friendships are portrayed in the book. Like, the TV show puts so much more friendliness into it. Like, the first book, Eye of the World, you still sort of feel the fact that these main characters grew up together in a small town. After that, it's just like, what is happening? And maybe just like people from Edmonds Field are just rough. Like, they just are real catty. Who knows? And fine. But all I learned from reading the series is I would never want to be in Edmonds Field. Those people are rough to be friends with. Like, that's not what I want from a friend. And I think it was intentional because having read New Spring, it's like, I can see you formed a friendship here where they talk and they do things. So I know, Robert Jordan, that you can. But you chose not to. And that's annoying to me. So, like I said, it's more about how much this repetitiveness is going to tax you. And maybe knowing it going in, you'll be okay. Now, what I will say about the character arcs and spending 14 books with these characters is that in a weird way, even though they frustrate me a lot, like, I don't like a lot of these characters. I like 2 of these characters. It became cozy in a really weird way. By the time I was somewhere in book like 9 or 10, I'm like, it's so comfortable that I'm reading this right now. Am I liking it? Not really, but it's so comfortable that I'm with these people because they were recognizable. These were, at least in our main cast, which we'll say are 20 to 30 people are our main cast because this has an absurd amount of characters. I could differentiate them. I could not differentiate a lot of our supporting cast, but the main cast, I could differentiate. And for the most part, they all had pretty fulfilling arcs. Some landed better than others because I do think something that this series doesn't do amazing is that because it has so many characters, it's actually quite impossible to wrap everything up very well. And even in the 3 books Sanderson chose to finish the series up with. Like, I would say some of the main characters were completely forgotten for the most part in the last 2 books, and then new characters were brought in for reasons unknown to me. I mean, I understand plot-wise why they were brought in. I'm not dense in terms of why they were brought in, but in my head I'm like, why is this brand new character in book 14 getting hundreds of pages while my main character from book 1, not main, but like someone from Edmonds Field in book 1 is doing nothing? It's just like, make it make sense. Like, there comes a point where it's like you want the book to be about your main characters, and this book isn't about your main characters. They're more prominent than everyone else, but it's more about the plot of The Last Battle than it is about following your main characters, even though there will be fulfilling arcs for most people. Like, they're pretty good. So that's what I'll say about characters. I definitely have a lot of nitpicks there, but it truly was frustrating to me and in a way that I really wasn't prepared for when I came into the series. And this next section, again, is more going to be me trying to prepare people for what they'll get versus what you might think you're getting if you watch other people's videos. Because world building, I came to this because it is foundational for a lot of modern fantasy that I read, that bases a lot of its world building on what this does. And this also does some really incredibly cool things, but it's not done in a way that if you didn't watch a YouTube video, if you just casually read this series, that you would notice. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, because if I didn't know or want those cool things, maybe I wouldn't have been as disappointed. But if I hadn't watched those videos, I would have missed a really cool part of this world, which I'll be vague about because some people consider it a spoiler. Although I would say, if you read this book, unless you are very focused on the details, you would miss it. It's a blink and you miss it reveal. People tell me it's very obvious, but if you're not a visual reader, I don't think it comes through. Like, if you don't focus on visual details when you read, I think you will miss a lot of these Easter eggs that lead to huge lore implications. Like, the lore is vast, the history is vast, but it's not in the pages of the book, if that makes sense. Or at least not obviously. You would have to, again, do the puzzly piece nature of building the world, which I wasn't prepared for. And again, sometimes things sort of get revealed, but it's not the main focus of the story. The focus of the story is, again, preparing for the last battle. And then we're going to do that. You know, like that's the purpose. And we are in this world that is trying to remember its past, because it's been so many years since is it the second or third age? I don't know. When all the cool stuff happened with the last dragon. And so I thought that was something I was really misled by when I watched a lot of videos, because I'm like, yeah, that sounds so freaking cool. And that didn't come across to me, because a lot of these things, they're a backdrop. And maybe that's the type of world building execution you want, which is totally fair. The world building is there. It is well thought out. Some cultures are really fleshed out. But I would say that the cultural world building is more focused on the architecture, the aesthetics of clothing, and sometimes you get to really see differences in personality, but it kind of usually just comes across as different ways for people to fight and bicker with each other because of miscommunications, because people don't talk about their cultures, which again, maybe that's realistic, but it's annoying. But like the Aiel, I really liked. I like the Saldeans. Shan-Chan are terrifying, but I love them because like I think that culture is the most distinct from everything we see on the continent that we follow. So it's a vast world you're going to get to explore. But if you are a casual reader, I don't think it's going to be as impactful for you as the people who are like big mega fans who talk about this on YouTube make you think it is, which is fine. And if you start to get really invested, you can look up the fan art and you can watch the deep dives into the world building and you can really add to the experience. I just never was personally invested enough, so I didn't do those things. So I just want you to know that to get that benefit, there's probably more homework involved for you as a reader. And the homework is already 15 huge books. So just know that, like, should you read it? If all of this sounds like, yes, I've been waiting for this my whole life, fine, go for it. Now, was it worth it for me? That was the question I said I would answer by the end of this video. I think yes. Not because, like, I had a fantastic time. Like, let's be honest. If I was not on the internet and I picked up this series, I probably would have stopped. So if I was being a non-bookish internet person, I would have stopped reading this series. Probably around book 4 or 5. Especially because I probably wouldn't have met Stephanie. We probably wouldn't have been buddy read it. I probably wouldn't have the idea of, I can make content for this, I wouldn't have those things. But because I got to buddy read it with a friend, because I can make this video, I'm going to do a live show later with some friends, which whenever we have that link will be in the description of this video, but might not be for a while. Stephanie's still working on book 14. And because now I can watch all of these Wheel of Time videos and have my own, like, opposite opinions to a lot of people. Like, I have watched some character tier ranking videos and I'm like, okay, that's not what I would do, but fine. And that's fun. Was it ever, I don't think I ever had a book that was more than a low 4-star out of 15 books. And it was long. But again, I also still had, cozy memories reading it. I have one memory of, decorating my Christmas tree while reading Path of Daggers, which is not a very good book. But I have this cozy memory of it. So, in that sense, it wasn't a waste of my time. I always said I had no regrets. Worth it? How do you define if something's worth it for you? I don't think I have the most stellar rating of it, but I will probably not reread it, although that's the thing. It's there's a part of me that's maybe in 20 years you will restart the audiobooks, Angela. Maybe you're that sucked in because you have spent so much time, and maybe that time through you'll do all the going into the forums and trying to piece everything together. I doubt I will, but like, I stand by all of the critiques I have in this video and all of the negative things I have to say, but like, there's just a lot. Like, it is vast, and none of it's done in the way I would want it to be done, but it's still like one of those indulgent experiments that I kind of do appreciate exists and that I spent time with it. Anyways, that's this rambly video. I don't think anyone's going to comment weird things on this, but I never know. Fandoms are always a time. If it's really, really negative, I'm just going to delete it. If it's a novel, I will read it, but I probably won't respond. And anything else I will, like, engage with within good faith within, like, the first couple weeks this video is up. So just know that. I don't normally make that disclaimer at the end of videos, but my Wheel of Time videos sometimes hit a different audience than my normal crew. So I just want to have that out there. If you don't have anything you want to say, I mean, for sure, if you have questions, ask questions. No spoilers for the series in the description or the comments down below, because I don't want to spoil anyone, especially because, like, you know, there's some big spoilers that people I know have gotten spoiled for, and I'm like, oh wow, I somehow did not get spoiled the entire time, which was, I thought, quite impressive. But yeah, if you have any questions you want me to answer, like a very specific thing, I'll be more than happy to answer. If you want to describe your experience down below so people can read them, feel free. And otherwise, if you want to leave an emoji just to let me know you're here. Is it lazy to do a wheel for the Wheel of Time? Even though I had you guys do that recently for a different video? Yes, but we're going to do it because it's the Wheel of Time. So we're going to do a wheel. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.